to our podcast today. This is David, your guide on success through strategy. Today, we're going to talk about the mask of inequitable stress, the silent killer, the silent dream stealer, the place where no one wants to dwell in, the place where all of your dreams get pushed back because of instances, circumstances, and people, as those things try to take away your energy levels and your health and your thought processes, all rolled up into one nasty beast that steals from you. And oh, yeah, we can tell you this either through experience or looking at others' experiences or being contrived or connived into an experience. Stressful situations show up all day, every day, some way, shape, or form. It's up to you to step through them, over them, or under them, or just toss them in the trash with your positive thought processes and your affirmations. And for those of you that are faith-based, your faith. I want to thank you today for joining us because we are happy in that we can go ahead and talk about these situations that are not conducive to us and some of the things that we can do to overcome them and make sure that we're all living a life conducive to us, each and every one of us, whether it's through podcasting, streaming, going live, whatever the case may be. This information can be passed on, and maybe you or someone you know can use it. So we ask that you like, subscribe, and donate. We are happy to have you. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, a little bit about the things that we're going to talk about today. First, I have to put the disclaimer out here that identifies a man, and I am a man, born a man, and I have no issues with others, with other pronouns. So if I talk man and woman, please do not be offended by this. Just add your pronouns in and keep stepping. All right, so that's the disclaimer for today. So let's listen and let's move on and let's get this thing going. We want to welcome you, and you hear me typing from time to time, so do not be afraid. Okay, do not worry. I talk in spurts sometimes, so please forgive me and give me a prepaid credit card on that. Okay. Anyways, let's get with it. One thing about stress that seems to be prevalent in everyone's lives is that these stressful moments and situations can be categorized. A lot of times you get stressed on the job, especially if you still have to go in when you were sitting at home during the COVID and working online, and you could just get up if you had to be at work at 8. You can get up, you didn't have to drive or catch the train or however you got to work, and you could just get on and get into your system, and you can talk to people, and you can go live with that as we're going live here. So that's one thing of stress that you have to now get in your mode of transportation to go to work. So it adds that element of getting up maybe 45 an hour or 30 minutes to an hour earlier, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. Everybody's different. So now you're on the train. There's a bunch of people on the train. Maybe there's someone coughing, which you kind of look, or someone's sick, they're blowing their nose, or someone just has a bad foul odor and you're sitting, either next to them or you're within the train on a train or a bus and you're within 10 to 15 feet. So they're putting their germs out in the air and you kind of look, and maybe you went maskless or maybe you got remashed as of today, and your stress started. So you look. So was it a stressful situation, or is it just a situation that is, and that you need to move on from it and go forward? Very tough situation to think about because of all of this heightened awareness in this pandemic times. Um, One thing that I always do is I just say my affirmations and even say something for that other person too that's positive within my mind so that I can move forward. And then so that door is now closed and it became a positive. Then you get to work and you go into work and you clock in or whatever you do. And half the people are there, the other half aren't. Some people are fighting the policies because they want to stay at home. Maybe they got kids or they just like being at home. So you have the stress there where half the team is at work, the other half is at home, which causes another stressor because now you're like, okay, how come I got chosen to come in, even though I may be an essential employee, but I still got chosen to come in and the others, they can stay at home. When in rights, it should be the other way around according to the pecking order at the job. So these are another situation. Those are a couple of stressors all in one lined up for you. So if you have a negative thought process, then you're pondering that thought. But if you have a positive process, you jump through that hoop also. Because now you say, okay, I'm at the job. I get to see the real backstabbing and I get to see the real place. And maybe I feel at home being at my job, with my desk or wherever I work, my work area, my workspace. And I can go ahead and work and then feel comfortable. I feel like I'm accomplishing more since I'm now at work. So that's how you step through that hoop. Okay. For those that are at home and they feel slighted that they didn't get asked to come back into work, which I've heard a lot of people saying as of recently. Well, remember, you're at home. So it just takes the discipline to get up in that time frame and get yourself together and get in front of that screen. And it's also behoove you to make some kind of green screen behind you or some kind of screen with something positive behind you. It can even be a wall, a picture of flowers or something or whatnot. But make sure that no one is seeing into your house so they have nothing to talk about offline. And to make sure that your image is always properly vetted before you get on so you don't cause any other stressors. And one of the things I'll tell from experience was on a online situation and we were getting things together and the team was and one of the people you could see directly into their house and you could see the laundry and you can also see the significant other walking around el fresco. So it was interesting because it changed the scope of the meeting. So that's when I say make sure that when you're talking online, make sure that you have some kind of background and back of you and make sure that your house is clean or that your area is clean. There's nothing that looks more unprofessional, even if you're in casual clothes. Let's say, as a man, you got on a bandline shirt, just like as a woman, you can wear a bandline shirt, and you have a background that signifies you. It lets them know, okay, I'm here, I'm serious. What do you have a background with? Excuse me, excuse me there. If you have a background with the inside of your house showing, and there's things in your house that may not be kosher for other people to see, then that takes from you as a person. Even if the people know you, it still takes away from you. Oh, you got laundry. Oh, you can see it back there. Somebody's always going to tell you eventually. And that's the worst kind of call or situation you can get in a private chat on a business call. So, online. So, I mean, it is what it is. But those are stressors that you add to your life. Okay. Nobody ever has a perfect day, but they can have good days. Okay. So now you're back at the job site. So now you can see the conniving, you can see the suck ups or whatever you want to call them, the negatives. But how you deal with that is saying, okay, this is the way it is. Okay, even though it doesn't have to be, people are still people and you can't legislate morality. But what you can do is make sure that your area or your situation is conducive to you to avoid those traps. So when that person comes in and they stand right in front of your desk, and they show all their human parts in front of you as you sit up to talk to them, you can still control that situation and say, "Hey, can you sit down and let's have a great talk today?" And this is the part that's missing in modern America is that everything is taken literally and personal. And so, is it a mistake? Depends on how the outcome is. Normally, those outcomes are dependent on that person's mentality and intellect. And after you've worked with a person for a while, or persons with an S, you know who they are and who they aren't. So you run the gamut of having another stressful situation. Right now, as a man, and I'll talk from my personal view here, so don't hold me hostage here with being sexist. I've had my own office, and others have walked in of the opposite gender, and sometimes the same gender. They've walked in, so I've asked for another person to be present, and I leave the door open, and it's an open and free conversation. So I make sure that everything is connoted into where it needs to be properly. And even if I have to record the conversation, I do let the people know that I'm recording, and I'm recording so that I can go back and listen and better myself. So that usually seems to work. One of the biggest deals we have right now with HR, any HR department, is we have so many rules and regulations that are on the books that you may never know that you're actually breaking a small rule. You may cover the big rule, but you may still be breaking the small rule. So one of the things I've learned to do is just to say, when there's people there that have different types of lifestyles that I believe are between them and God, I just say all pronouns to cover everybody, because there's a new pronoun all the time coming forth, or the old pronouns no longer exist. So rather than me learning all those, I just say all pronouns, and you'll hear it on all of my podcasts. You'll always hear this disclaimer. The reason being is because someone can get up and they can feel like they're a dog that day, or a cat that day, or a giraffe that day. So I don't know what that is in the lexicon, but just all pronouns. So when I'm talking to people, I just say that just as a matter of fact. It's not. Some say it's disconcerting, but it's not against anyone. It's just saying all pronouns. So to them, it's okay because he's saying okay. It's all pronouns. He doesn't have an issue, which I don't. So that's the better. It's better. It's better to be on top of the situation than to be under or behind the situation, or behind the sticks, like they say in football. So one of the situations that presents as a stressor is dealing with people that have a different orientation than you. It's only a stressor if you have issues with it. It ceases becoming a stressor if you say all pronouns when you're talking to them. Because even though you may know, and they may want you to know, or they may want to be addressed as at a certain way, at least you're covered in case you slip up and don't make the right pronoun for them. So that's an important. So that's a way to get through that stressor, and then you'll find it's easier to work with them because there are some great people. So one of the things I've learned also is that people are people, no matter what race, color, creed, whatever it is. Okay, so it's just people are people. They just do it in different. Maybe they have an accent, or maybe they do it a different way, but they're still people. So it doesn't matter. That kills that stressor instantly once you think that way. And then you're able to move forward. One of the things that you have to do is question yourself about your biases. Okay, those biases can lead to a lot of stresses, a lot of stressors, I should say. The stressors are there because maybe you feel some kind of way in your heart, or maybe you feel some kind of way. You have to realize that, okay, that might be a bias. Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the vibe that you get. But back to the all pronoun situation. If you say in your mind, you know what, all pronouns, and just say it to yourself, I work with them no matter what, then that'll get you through that stress. That will work if you say it a couple times to yourself. So, and it's a lot of stuff we have with stress is it's passed down from generation to generation, and we don't realize that. And I always say this in all my podcasts, that generational thought process has to change because the reason being is because some of those society has changed and some of those archaic ways of thinking have to change with the times. And that's the part that some of us fight. We fight that instead of just saying, okay, when that was told to me, I was 5 or 6, or whenever I became cognizant of the world. Okay, but that's, you're in your 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. That's 15, 16 years ago. For some of us, that's last millennium. So look at it from that perspective, and then you can open your eyes and start taking that step forward. One of the stressors at work also too is keeping your work area organized and conducive for you. Sometimes you have so many things that you have to do that even your computer is unorganized. So sometimes you got to do a combination thereof of old school paper files and new school computer files. And I'm not talking about tickler files. I'm talking about things on a computer that keep you organized. So every time you're on an email, you get an email, you got to put it in a certain file, especially if they've got a mass email chain going on in the company about some meeting that you went to that you felt was dumb. Okay. And it's like that. So that's another stressor. So you got to put that in a file on your computer and just put the date and those things as needed. A brief synopsis that you understand so that you can access those files anytime something comes up, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. One of the things about meetings, especially in person after being online, and then meetings that are hybrid meetings where there's some online and while some are in the boardroom and they're all meeting together. So called a combo package or whatever you want to call it, or we can call it a hybrid for the more professional folks out there. One of the things that you can do with that is realize that the people at home or in another location have just as much pressure as you do sitting in front of the screen. So in the boardroom, they have just as much pressure. So once you realize that, then you should be able to relieve that stressor. And another big stressor too is how do you look that day? Okay, people say, "Oh, I got a bad hair day." No, it's not that you have a bad hair day. You just have a day where you got to work a little bit more to get your hair where you would like it to be. And if you can't get it to where you would like it to be, then you got to realize that's where it's supposed to be. So as long as it's professional and you're in a professional environment, or if you're if you're at the latest tech startup, then you can fix it accordingly. And that's how you get rid of that stressor. But you got to look at it like, okay, my hair wants to be this way. I may not like how this looks, but let me take a look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, my hair wants to be this way. Let me get it at least, if I can't get 100%, I can at least get 85 or 90% or 70%. So then that takes away that stressor. So that doesn't follow you into the meeting where you're feeling inadequate and you have an inadequacy about you and you just transfer over into your thought process. And now you can't complete what you need to say, actually need to say. That's going to make a difference in that meeting. So if you're in the corporate world and you're at C level, and you're you have to take it, so to speak. And those of you that are that level know what I'm talking about. And you got to take it. You still can be there and look and still maintain your composure and still realize that you are who you are and you're there for a reason and you are the best at what you do. And if you're not, you're going to surround yourself with people, or you have surrounded yourself with people that are fully capable. Those are how you get through that type of stress. So I'm going to go back and revisit the stressor of looking looking good in on these meetings, especially in the hybrid process. The thing about looking good is whatever your thought processes are at that point is going to come out in your look. So that's why they tell you learn how to read people, learn how to. So if you have a solid look every time, a stoic look, and I shouldn't say stoic. Let's backtrack. I should say you have a look that's conducive to you. then you're always the same. So that means that you're always a steady person that someone else can count on or that the team can count on. And this is very important to be that rock solid adventure person, but also to be steady also. Sometimes when you're that rock solid person, they give you more work to do because they want to see if they can push you to your edge. And the cliche here is don't let them see you sweat. But the thought process is to keep moving forward and to work more and more efficiently. In this podcast of the mask of inequitable stress is that we're trying to deal with different things that happen, different scenarios that happen to you, whether you're at work, at play, or you're just walking down the street. And we're going to address that next about walking down the street. When you leave, and some of you go straight to the garage, you get in your car and you go, and then some of you have garages you have to park, down the street or wherever. Make sure that your composure is always correct when you leave the building. Even if you had a long, hard day, make sure that your composure. When you keep your composure, others look at you that way. That's a person to be reckoned with. Or that's a person, if you have a suit and tie on, or even if you have a band on, that you have that look. And I'm not going to tell you to have swag. I'm going to tell you to have that look that I am a VIP. I'm a person, whether I'm the janitor or whether I'm the C-level executive. When you leave work, you have to have that. When you walk through the building, when you see other coworkers, when you walk through, everyone knows who you are. Not in a negative light, but in a great light. That okay, that's that person. Okay, we got to talk to him or her. We need to, and all pronouns here, and we need to be associated because they are a winner. And that's a very important aspect of it. And that's a very important aspect of when you become a winner, you take on more stressors. And when you take on more stressors, you take on more solutionary situations to improve and to defeat those stressors. A lot of people have to go home and they got to fight their significant other after they've won all day at work, and it's a big downer. So they don't go home; they go have a drink. They hang out, they do things, but you still got to keep your composure, and that's a acquired skill. If you're drunk and you know you're drunk, then you have to know when to say, "Okay, enough is enough," and then I'm out of there. That's the part. Now, I'm not condoning drunken driving or drunken traveling. What I'm condoning is saying no when your functionality has become null and void. And have an exit strategy, have a backup plan. That's what I'm saying. If you have to turn it over to someone else, you have to turn it over to someone else. You have to stay in a hotel room that night above the bar or wherever it is, two blocks down the street, then that's what you got to do. But just realize what you're doing. And that's the fun part about it, is to have your faculties and you're still able to function. And that part right there is something that you can eliminate that stress. Or just don't go. Go to the ice cream shop. And I know if you're on the East Coast or somewhere where it's cold in the winter, that might not be feasible, but go somewhere where you can get, warm coffee or something in a different environment so you can calm down and get yourself ready to go home. And then when you go home, and if you have a significant other that's always argumentative and always, for whatever reason, then it's up to you to understand how to cope with that situation. Do I, do I go and get a divorce? Do I talk it out with that significant other? And what strategies can I use to temper the other person's fury? Like they say, when the pros and the cons are in are in imbalance, then you know what your decision is. So that old T you draw on a paper and you put pros and cons and start writing them down. Some of you may not want to do that. Some of you might want to do that. Some of you may just stay away from it because you already know what it is. So my job here is just to say, what kind of coping mechanism do you have, to combat the stressors at home? You got some bad kids or kids that are ungrateful because you gave them everything, maybe because you gave them everything you didn't have and they are ungrateful, and they say things to you. Well, you got to cope with that. That pisses you off. So you got to learn to cope with that. What do you do? Some people, they smoke certain things We won't get into them here. Some people, they drink certain things, whether at home. Some people, you know, they have issues within themselves. So one of the things to alleviate the stressors from home is to understand that they're not real. They're just there to move you forward. So if you look at them from that perspective, then it gets a little easier. And it might be a bump thing for me to say, but it's really true. So I start looking at different ways of coping with situations, and so I ended up with a peaceful house, significant other in a peaceful house. So that's that's things you have to work on. So and then sometimes it's just one person, you got to be the beacon, and then you got to pull the other person around or do suggestive selling to them because you're already doing it at work anyway. You might as well bring it home and use some of the techniques, and especially if you've been training, and especially, so, and I'm sure you've got a HR where they got a company health plan through HR or whatever they have. A health plan, you can talk to somebody, or if you don't want to do it there, you can talk to somebody else. I'm a big believer in understanding why the issue is prevalent so that now I can take a step forward without having to take a step backwards so that I can start alleviating the situation. And yeah, it sucks. And yeah, you shouldn't have to do it. But sometimes you got to do it. You got a significant other. You got to do what you need to do. And you got to work on yourself. And then that'll form over into your relationship. And sometimes you got to set the example and just be that example and just take it. And just like at work, it's the same thing. You just in your home. So one of the other stressors that's out here is when someone gets a health problem and they got to go to the hospital, whether it's you yourself or a family member or a family member that hates you. So you have to move through that. So do you not deal with the family member that hates you or the family member that just got sick, or do you deal with it? And does your job get in the way? Or do the kids get in the way? Or is there's all kinds of stressors? It seems like when there's a health situation, there's always multiple stressors that come to the table. They just show up and they sit at the table with you and they're looking at you. So, and I'm saying it from the point of view that everything comes out that wasn't right comes out a lot of times in the health, and you can see it sometimes in the financial picture, sometimes in the social picture, sometimes in the mental and spiritual picture. They all come out, and you find out who's who in your family and who can do what. And I've been in my family, I've been the engine. Um, I had a I had a mother, I had my mother, she died, and so it was a terrifying construct, and the construct was actually real, so it was reality. So maybe I'm a misnomer there on the construct, but in my mind, I had to develop a construct of I was going to take care of the paperwork, regardless of how I felt. So there was two things that was happening during the situation. Um, I had to take care of all the bills as far as getting them correct before the law so that others in my family wouldn't be responsible for those bills that my mother had created. I had to do that. Those of you that are in the legal field, you'll understand it. And those of you that are not, just understand, what the laws are. So you might have to go look them up and see in your state or wherever you're at. But I'm talking from the United States point of view, West Coast style. So I was able to get that, but I had to, how I handled that, and how my mother's death, I had to run them concurrent. This was the hardest thing to do. When I ran them concurrent, when I ran them concurrent, excuse me, it's been some years. It's been some years, but I'm taken back to that point. When I ran them concurrent, I, I, I had to look at the death certificate, and I had to fax that death certificate off 42 times for the 42 bills. Okay, at this time, we weren't all internet savvy, and majority of your public sector stuff like the county and different things, they were just now coming online and getting everything to be interconnected. or as Disney would say, synergistic. Um, so, which means, now everything is done online. But at that time, I was already in business. So I had a phone and a fax machine with a dedicated line. So, it's dated. Okay. So, it's some time ago. All right. So I had to go and I actually went over to the county. I talked to him on the phone, faxed over some stuff, and I actually hand walked it into the county at that point. And then the lady at the county helped me. I had tears in my eyes. But we had to get the death certificate and everything. We had to get it verified with the coroner and all of that. And that was before it's done now. Not to say that the county was behind the time this early 2000s. It was just that they weren't there yet. Some of the counties weren't there. So those of you out here in the profession, you guys know what I mean. How things used to be done and how they're done now. So anyway, I had to do that. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Take a pause here. But I had to do that. And a nice lady, she talked to me, and we were able to get on the phone, and we called around to different places, and then I had to go out to the credit bureaus, which you could do. Of course, Southern California, um, they had you could go to all the three big ones at the time, and I won't mention those and those because a lot of credit bureaus they've had things happen at their offices, so they primarily you got to be in the know to know where they're at. So to go, and we're actually able to get all the information from the corner and everything and take it into the credit bureaus, which now would be done automatically. But at that time, it was walk in and greet and meet and talk to them, and this, it was a big stressor because I had to go to so many different offices. But I did it, and I was able to get it done. And this helped me in business. My business knowledge took over, and it was like I was doing things automatic. I remember going and sitting in my car and just thinking, but I had no fear. I had no fear. I was like, this got to get done. This has to be done. So I was able to do it within 3 days after my mom had passed, and it was done. By the time the family got around to doing everything, um, they hired an attorney. Attorney said everything was already. I turned the paperwork over to the attorney. Attorney said everything was already done. He didn't need to do anything, so he didn't charge him anything. This is from the heart, so please excuse me. Please excuse me. But I got to talk about it because it's part of this mask of inequitable stress. And that's what happens. That's what happens when when someone dies and you're the engine and you got to take care of it. And these are things that happen. Now you can do it online or you can hire somebody to do it, but it still doesn't take away the stressfulness of it all because you're managing pain and you're managing the stress of paperwork. And these things have to be done. Somebody has to do it. So you can outsource it, which is hire a legal person, or you can do it yourself. But my suggestion is at this point in time, I would outsource it. I would just outsource it. If you have property involved and other things, you have to outsource it. So those are things that are stressors. That's why I wanted to talk about this today because there's a lot of people in situations and all the stressors show up concurrently. You might have 5 to 10 things or anything two or more is concurrent and they're running all together and they're enough to take you into the depressive state. So in order for me to deal with it, I just dealt with it head on. I just turned the aircraft carrier into the wind and launched the planes. I launched the fighters. That's what I did, and that was my vision in my mind. I was going to get this done. My mom had birthed me, and so she was my mom, and I loved her. And when she passed, I knew that I was going to have to figure some things out. So I figured them out, and I had to get them from other family members' hands, and I had to. go ahead and get these things taken care of because I knew that they weren't capable. Was it a knock on them? No. It was just they weren't capable. And this deserved the best person possible in the family that could do it, which was me at the time. So it also got me better at sales and business. Interesting. So that was the side effect. And that's when I came up with success through strategy. And that's my motto. And because I've always going to have a strategic plan and have success with it. And I never lose. And I don't lose. I will never lose because of my plan. Not that they're perfect, it's because they're conducive to me and how I work so that I can move through whatever issues or situations there are. So those are some of the issues that I've had. I just shared. Maybe I shouldn't, but it's like that. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through that or are going through that. And if you're the person that's not capable, when things go down, stay out of it. Let the others handle it, but then offer your services on stuff that you can do. So that keeps the stressors down in the family. Because there's always going to be somebody that's going to be feel like they're slighted, especially if you got property or materials or things that the person that departed left. There's always, people are infighting. It gets real ignorant. So, and that's a big stressor. And you could be riding that stressor and missing your blessings at the same time. And people do this over years and years. Kind of see it with our ex president. I say no names, neither express or implied. So, people writing books, different things, you know, associates. So, you see that when there's amounts of money or materials or tangible property involved, there's always a mess. But it depends on who can navigate the mess the best in order so everybody has an equitable treatment in the situation. So a lot of times you have to outsource that. And the person's wishes may not be the greatest, but that's the way they saw it. They passed on. It was their situation. And so you have to accept that and not stress over that if you're the person on the short end of the stick. So one of the things I realized is that when my mom died, it changed me. Things that used to stress me didn't stress me anymore because I had went through that part of it. And I went through that paperwork part. So that helped me to heal myself a lot. Okay. One of the things about being a winner is that you got to know when the stress is coming. You got to know how to deal with the stress. That's why it's a mask because you don't see it. You don't realize this is like there are some books out here who move my cheese and different things. Credit to them. I'm not endorsing them, but credit to them. Um, and there's energy vampires, people that always bring you negativity or what you perceive to be negativity. Sometimes people are on a higher mentality, mental intellect, and they say things that you can't see and you think it's bringing you bad energy or bringing you stress. But in actuality, if you listen, you'll hear what's to come. There's always somebody in your family that can see what's to come. I don't care what IQ you have, there's always going to be someone's born that way. And that's just the equivalency of families. So listen to them. Case in point, we had a family member that sees things, that sees what's to come. So they ostracized that family member. Other family members did. But now, when they look back, all the stuff that they were told has now come to pass. And they didn't take advantage of it. That family member has now moved on because of their mentality intellect. They had grown so much because of their experiences, they moved on. So they may, and once that person moves on, they may not talk to their family members very much. Maybe they talk to them, during holidays and different things. So, but they always tell them they love them. So that's all you can do there. If you're that person that's mentally and intellectually maybe a little bit more, then it's not that you're better. It's just that you think a certain way. You think in a certain way that's conducive to you and your family. So the old way of thinking you have to wash yourself of it and be that person and then still tell your family that you love them. You still do, but you just, what they're talking about and what you're talking about is a gulf. It's a wide gulf. So that creates another stressor at the family reunion or family get togethers. So you have to be quiet at the family get togethers and you got to listen. They know that they lower than you. And that's how they perceive you, that you're somebody that's up there. So you don't have to flaunt it. You just be yourself. You just listen to them and talk to them and interact with them as much as you can. Some people you're only going to be talking with for a minute. Some people you can't. After 3 minutes, it's just indecipherable. It is what it is. But those are stressors that you have to learn to. Okay, I'm going to take these people as they are. You know what I mean? And you don't necessarily judge them. You're just saying, I'm taking them as they are. So that's when the whole purpose of honor others with non-judgment comes in because you take them as who they are, and that's a good thing. Um, about 2 years ago, I had a conversation with another family members, and uh, they were talking about drug addicts and stuff in their families. Okay, a lot of people have them. You know what I mean? So they were saying about how they were stealing stuff out the house and doing out their mother's house and doing things, negative towards the family and family members. So my suggestion was, okay, well, they're a drug addict, right? So why would your expectation be anything different? Instead of putting that stressor in your life or stressor situations with an S, why don't you just ask them, are they still using drugs? Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Oh, you still using drugs? Just be honest about it. You know, and that there puts it on the table. Maybe they get offended or maybe they hate it, but it's a valid question because then it absolves you. It sets you free when you ask that question. And you don't have to do it in a mean manner. You you know, just calm and just like, hey, you still using drugs? Or, whatever it is you're going to say, but something along those lines. Everybody's different. And 9.5 out of 10, they're going to tell you. And so that right there absolves you of what's coming to happen. Because then, oh, they stole the microwave out the house. Okay. You don't, even though you might you might have some negative feelings, they're not the feelings of rush, of hatred and wanting to do things. So that's why I say you got to ask them. They might tell you none of your business. Okay, so you know what it is. If it's not a straight yes or a straight no, they're still dabbling. You know what I mean? So that's what that is. So that's why I say the mask of inequitable stress, because it's inequitable towards you. And the reason why it's inequitable towards you is because you've decided to dwell in it without even knowing it. And that's why it's a mask. So it's an interesting proposition that you can decide to be the person that is above it, or you can be the person that dwells in it. So this is the part, we're all going to have some kind of stress. We have health problems, you got stress. The whole thing is to stay accountable to yourself so that you can move through it. I watched a 3 ring circus when my mom died at the hospital. It was a 3 ring circus because they did not know how to manage. She is a woman of the community. They did not in a positive way by helping people and being of service. So it was a positive thing, but it was bad for her because there was just too many people at the hospital. So we had to get to the lead nurse and the hospital administration and the security. And now we just can't have these people. We have to cut this down so that even if she wants to talk to this person, it has to run through the family first. So once we got that under control, then she could rest and do the things she needed. So those are things and that's a stressful situation, but you got to know how to deal with it. So you got to build your blocks. So when something happens, you got to be able to think on your feet, so to speak. Cliche-ish, yeah, but worked for me, and it'll work for you. So you got to have the building blocks because nobody's prepared. Somebody has a heart attack, somebody has something capital, or somebody goes in, you know, and they just go in, and you get a call at work at 10 a.m. at work. Oh, so and so had a heart attack, and they went in the hospital, or they got hit by a car, and so you got to be prepared. If you're the one, if you're going to be the one, and you know you're going to be the one that's got to handle everything, then you got to get yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially prepared for what the onslaught is. I was lucky because I was able to have someone contact the family members and tell them exactly exactly what they needed to know, where she was at, and what help we was going to need from them. So that helped me. So if you don't have that, you got to find somebody that can. It's somebody in your family that likes to gossip anyway. Tell them to put this out, and we don't want it all over social media. But we need this, and we need to tell everybody not to put it all over social media. Because sometimes your family's business does not need to be out there in that way. One of the things of being immune to the stress as much as possible, or cut the stress level down, is to have peace within yourself. And that's a hard thing to do when you got jobs, you got bills, you got mortgage payments, you got all the things of life that you need, car insurance, whatever. One of the things is to realize is I'm going to work or I have my business, I got contracts and I got money coming in so I can negotiate. So those are things that, you have to realize what you need to do. Maybe you can't pay that bill, you know, on the 5th. So because somebody died on the 3rd, he just ain't with it. You know what I mean? So you're gonna have to call in and whatever else, you need to do. Um, I'll tell you though, it's been a good day today for me, and I hope it's a good day today for you. And I'm going to pause here so that we can get our sponsors time. So about 10, 12 seconds. So I would like to say thanks for all that are listening. We'll revisit this topic, and we'll revisit the thing about my mother probably excuse me, in a later situation, another podcast or something, or maybe we'll do something online so you can see me. But just remember to like, subscribe, and donate. And I want to thank you for listening to me today. Have a blessed day and a blessed evening and a blessed rest of the week. We'll be talking soon. Thank you. This is David signing off from the Success Through Strategy podcast, The Mask of Inequitable Stress. Thank you for listening.